Hey, y'all. This is Dr. Carr, the Culture Docent, here to help you navigate and curate the experiences you want to have. So, in today's episode called Collaborative Environments for Success, we are talking about collaboration and how it can be a force multiplier in impacting cultural norms within your industry. So, as always, this is across any industry, right? Any industry you can think of, you're going to need collaboration. So, I am very excited to be joined by my guest, Lorneshia Cooper, BCBA, LBA, owner and executive clinical director at Applied Behavioral Approach Consultant. Child, that's a long title. So
It
tell us
is.
a little bit about yourself.
The introduction, thank you. Yes, as Dr. Carr said, I am Lorneshia Cooper. I am a board certified behavior analyst, BCBA. I'm also an LBA as of 2 months ago, a licensed behavior analyst in the state of Georgia. And I am an owner and the executive clinical director of Applied Behavioral Approach Consulting. I wanted to play on ABA, but I didn't want it to be all ABA and trying to find a name that fit. Whatever. So that's how I came up with that name, but I always call it ABAC for short. So if you hear me say ABAC, I'm referring to my own practice. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Love that. I love that. Yeah, I was like, we're going to need to come up with something to refer to this because that's a long title, but
Uh-huh.
well deserved and well earned. So, I would just say, when it comes to collaboration, I think a lot of people view it just as a way to get things done. And not in a good way. It like they feel like, okay, we're going to collaborate and we're going to join together, but really they're thinking about, we just need to figure this out and say that we're including someone
Mm-hmm.
else. To me, personally, collaboration is like, when you bring together insights and perspectives. Some of them are going to be different, but we're all working together to achieve this common goal. If I'm working on something, like I may choose to bring in a subject matter expert, right? Like I'm not an expert in everything. I need someone that is a SME in their field and they're can come in and say like, yes, you need to have XYZ, right? You need to have these certain computer parts. You need to think about this particular audience, whatever it is, but I want them to come in and to help with that. And I think, also with that, there's two kind of important notes when I think about collaboration, and you could tell me if you agree, but, one is that collaboration is not having other people do the work for you. Like, when I say we're collaborating, if it's on a document, on a project, initiative, like I'm not saying it so that you can then, like, I'm just shirking my duties and shifting them to someone else. It is, we are truly being collaborative in this space. And then, the other thing is collaboration does not require consensus. I get that a lot, a lot, a lot. Like, yes, I may have, invited you in, but that does not mean that we need to all unanimously agree on something.
Mm-hmm.
So I do not believe that collaboration requires that consensus. But I do think it's like just a really critical part of any effective team, being an effective leader. In fact, it's actually one of the 6 signature traits of inclusive leadership, which is a framework I refer to regularly. It's like my bread and butter. I actually did part of my dissertation work. That was a framework that I used, was these 6 signature traits. And collaboration is one of those because at its core, it's really about individuals working together, building on each other's ideas to do something new,
Mm-hmm.
solve a complex problem, right? And but for collaboration to be successful, individuals need to be first willing to share their diverse perspectives. That means that we need to create the culture, right, where, there is this culture of collaboration. People feel open to sharing their perspectives. They feel safe, right? They trust that when they share that it's going to be kept within that space or that they're not going to be undermined and things like that. That real culture of collaboration. And since we are all learning to become more inclusive leaders, that means that when we are encouraging collaboration, we are encouraging autonomy, we're
Yes.
empowering our teams to connect with others. All in this pursuit of diverse perspectives. So, all that to say, collaboration is a trait and a behavior and a practice we should absolutely see across all industries. And that's why I'm excited to have you here, Lanisha, just to share your perspective on the importance of collaboration in your field. But we need to get into what your field is because not all of us are familiar with ABA. So tell us a little bit about, what ABA means and, even this recent certification and license that you've got.
Yeah. So ABA is just applied behavior analysis. So it's the study of behavior. It's basically I'm figuring out why you do what you do, basically. And when I'm figuring that out, I'm using this information to help the learner or the individual to succeed independently or to know when they may need co-assistance, right? Because you're not doing everything independently on your own. You're going to need to be able to depend on some people. So I don't always say to teach them independence because they're just
Yeah.
not realistic for neurotypicals. So I'm working on like, why do you behave the way that you behave? And how can I support you with social skills, communication skills, and flexibility with denials and flexibility with transitions, more specifically for my autistic individuals. And again, just how to navigate the world. But I think it's also important to know that ABA isn't just for autism. A lot of people think ABA is just autistic people or just children in general. ABA, there are people in ABA that work in the health industry. They're like personal trainers. They work with animals. There are some that work with corporate 500 companies because you're working on your client is essentially whoever needs a behavioral change, right? So companies are always looking, I think they call them change managers in a lot of companies. And my role as a BCBA, I will fit in that role. I will come in and see like, what is your staff retention? What is performance? What is productivity? How do we improve that? How do we build morale or whatever the case, whatever companies want to work on, that's the client. And I could be the BCBA. ABA isn't just autism. It's anybody that it's just behavior, the study of behavior and why do you do what you do and how can I support you to meet your own personal goals, whether that's the learner's goals, the company's goals, the caregiver's goals, whoever's goals that is, how do we help you meet those needs? And so the BCBA is the board certified behavior analyst certification. You get that through, all kinds of learning, training, experience. That is what makes me certifies me to be able to work independently. That's how I'm able to have my own practice because I have my BCBA certification. And then not a lot of states require this right now, but Georgia just recently required you to have your license. So now I'm an LBA, so I'm a licensed behavior analyst. Oops, excuse me. It's just the certifications that I need to say and to show I am knowledgeable, I have experience, and I have a certification board, I have a licensing board that's gonna keep me in check.
I love that breakdown because even just researching and trying to figure out, I'm like, okay, but like, what's just an easy way of explaining what ABA is? Nothing was as succinct as what you just shared.
Yeah.
And being able to relate it back to organizations, of course, that's my area where I'm like,
Mhm.
I do change management, right? And everything you said, like, yes, like, why are you doing the things that you do, helping people through those transitions? That is very key and even
Yes.
just for myself, where I'm thinking, I'm like, yeah, I struggle with transition. So I would benefit from learning and that type of assistance. So that is amazing. So with all that being said, why is collaboration so important in your field and how does that translate to better outcomes for your learners?
Say something and some other BCBAs may look at me like I'm crazy, but I feel like as a BCBA, if you're not collaborating with people, then what are you doing? Like honestly, because ABA is not the end all be all. If you have a BCBA and you're in ABA, or more specifically for my autistic learners, you may still need other supports. You may need speech. You may need occupational therapy for sensory integration. You may need physical therapy. You may need floor therapy or play therapy or music therapy. And a lot of times we forget about I don't work more so like with mental health, I'm behavioral health. So if there is like some trauma there that needs to be addressed, I will refer you out to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Or in the school system, maybe you need to talk to the school psychologist because they can put certain supports in as far as testing and things like that. So I don't that's not my scope of practice and I don't practice stepping on anyone's toes. So collaboration is absolutely important because I may have someone that I'm working with, a learner, and I realize you aren't articulating that well. And while I can work on communication and in a sense to get you or not get you to motivate your behavior, maybe I need to teach you how to say bathroom as opposed to just having an accent on yourself. But it's not my responsibility to teach you how to say it, articulate it well. I don't know that. I don't understand that. I don't know the beginnings of language and how that works. So I need to refer you out to a speech therapist. A lot of times with sensory, a lot of sensory integration, sometimes children have certain sensory needs that leads to certain behavior. I can recognize that. And as the BCBA, I can say, okay, part of my plan is to get you with an occupational therapist. So they can work on that piece. So we can also work on the behavior piece as well. So it's if you don't have that collaboration, what are you doing? And I agree with what you said earlier. about, collaboration doesn't just mean that they do all the work, but
Right.
also collaboration doesn't just mean that you bring people on board so they can see you do the work. So your ego can be
That
stroked,
part.
right? So, like, oh, look at me. I fixed it. I did all this. I just want you to see
Right.
this. No, that's not the case. Collaboration is what's your piece of the pie and what's my piece of the pie, and how do we make this big whole pie complete? That's how I see collaboration.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like, we're bringing together these pieces
Hmm.
because, to your point, it's not about me as the individual. It's not about you as the individual. One, we are doing something to help our learners, or our client or our customer,
Hmm.
whoever is the end, recipient. It's about them and getting them the behavior change or organizational change or whatever type of change that they're, aiming to see, helping them meet their goals and their objectives. So yeah, it can't be, well, I just want y'all to see how well I'm doing in this space and like look how well
I
I
don't
was
need
able
y'all.
to teach them, right? So like we don't want that. We want to be able to, what I feel like you're describing is like this ecosystem of care, right?
Hmm.
So it is, all of these different parts of the puzzle that have to come together so that we are helping this
Yeah.
individual in whatever capacity we're supposed to be supporting them.
Yeah. And understanding there's different variables that lead to behaviors, right? So I need to know what happens at home, what happens at school, what happens
Right.
at church, what happens when you're with your OT therapist. What are they working on? What language are they using? So it can
Mm,
let me know the bigger picture. So that's why when I said stop, that's a trigger for you because that was a
right.
word that you said that mom or dad or someone said in the past. But even in organizations, I need to collaborate with team leaders. I need to collaborate with the stakeholders, collaborate with the staff themselves so I can see, oh, that's why morale is high or low because
Mhm.
they don't like you sending them emails at 9 p.m. Stop that. So, it's collaboration is going to give you the bigger picture. If you don't collaborate, you only have your small little picture and you got that tunnel vision and you're missing all these other glaring variables. It's like, hey, consider me too.
Yes, that collaboration is context.
Hmm.
Exactly. No, I love that. And I think what you're describing, when you have to work in that space, whatever the space is, it can be difficult and like trying to get folks on the same page. Not necessarily, what did I say? Collaboration is not consensus. We don't have to unanimously agree, but we do need to be on the same page. What is our plan for care, right? What are we ultimately trying to achieve? And I think in that it requires some negotiation and conflict resolution skills. But what would you say is the biggest challenge you face working as a BCBA, leading your own practice? Like as we're thinking about, of course, like collaboration, what is the biggest challenge?
I would say my biggest challenge is, and it's probably been in everything, it's just imposter syndrome. And it's big now because I don't have like a big company or a corporation that I can blame it on. Like, oh, they made me do that. I had to do it that way. It's just me, right? And it's even more hard because like I said, there's a shift in ABA. So they're what we call old ABA that was rooted more in just compliance based. You do this because I told you to
Mm,
is rooted in using reinforcements and edibles and things like that to force kids to do things and not get them intrinsically motivated to do it themselves. It doesn't look at children as humans. Wow, that's weird, right? It looks at them as something to be fixed. And so now we're shifting to what we call more the neuro-affirming or assent-based ABA, where we are actively looking for that learner's assent. Do they want to do this? Great. Are they showing me signs like a tantrum and kicking and screaming that they don't want to do this? Then let me back off because that will be the case for any neurotypical. If a child is screaming and hollering, you back off. If
right.
I said something to you and you're like, hey, stop, 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 I'm not going to just push through and force it because this is what I said. So there's that shift, but there's not that many practitioners that are in that shift that knew that more modern neuroaffirming assent based ABA. So it's like running a race. I may have like three other people in front of me, but then there's a whole line of people because I'm in third place, right? There's a
Right.
whole line of people behind me and they can see me stumble, they can see me trip, they can see me fall, they can see me go the wrong direction. But I only got three other people that can kind of help me and lead me and guide me. And I'm like, I need more examples.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm kind of paving my own lane. And it makes it that imposter syndrome just really gets to me sometimes. Like, do I know what I'm doing? Do I know what I'm talking about? Because there's not that many people that's echoing the same thing. And then that can kind of also lead to just collaborating. When I try to collaborate with other speech therapists or occupational therapists or physical therapists, they remember old ABA. So
Yeah.
they look at me like I had a learner one time I went for an evaluation in the school and I met their speech therapist and she was like, and I told her who I was and she's like, oh. And I could have got mad. I could have been like, "Oh my God," and I was like, "What you know about ABA?" Because I already
Right.
know there's a bad name. "What you know
Right.
about ABA?" And she told me all that she knew, and I was like, "I agree with you. I don't like that either." And I can immediately see her disarmed, like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
you might be one of the good ones?" So that helped me, because I could have came in like, "Oh my gosh, she hates me. She doesn't like me. I don't know what I'm doing." But I took that as an opportunity, like, "No, I understand. I completely validate your experience with that. But this is how I operate, and I'm not gonna force you to see it that way. I just hope that you see it through my actions." So yeah, that's kind of one of the biggest things. It's just fighting through that imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot that was like really, really good and that resonated with me. And for all of y'all listening and continue to listen, we are going to have an episode on imposter syndrome. So that's very much in alignment. I'm glad you brought that up because there will be an episode on that. But you brought up the fact that like there aren't that many people, right? There aren't that many practitioners doing it of this newer way, right? The evolution of your field. And so it can be very challenging when you do not have the peer support. Like, like you said, like no one's really attaching to this. Am I saying the wrong thing? And it's like
Yes.
you have to constantly reinforce for yourself that like no, I'm not, this isn't like a new age thing that like
I'm
I'm not
making
on the
this up.
fringe. This is the future. But that can be, make you, that could be challenging, right? Like it could in some ways like almost undermine your confidence because like you said, everyone has this view and this picture of what ABA is supposed to be. And of course, right, like that goes across fields where we're seeing changes and everyone saw the way that it used to be. And then we're starting to see shifts. And when you have people on the forefront, which you are, right? Like it is like, okay, well, I'm sharing this information and I know I kind of sound crazy to them because that's not what they're used to hearing. But I love that you were able to, disarm with facts. Um, come at it with a way of like, yes, I understand the context that you have, but I want to provide this new context for you as we're moving into, the evolution of this field because it's only going to help everyone involved, right? It's not as we go back to the end user, right? Is who we're worried about. So you and
Absolutely.
we're going to be able to collaborate and figure out what those things are. And I also love the fact that you said like it almost like forces you to collaborate because there aren't that many practitioners. Like you have to, right?
Yeah.
Even if you didn't want to. I mean, I know you're a fan of collaboration, but even if you didn't want to, right? Like all those, the BCBAs out there that it might be like, oh well, I don't want to work with other people.
I can
Okay,
work
let's
on
say
speech. I can do
yeah,
this.
like, yeah.
Oh,
Let's say that you don't wanna work with anyone, but you're trying to be on the forefront, you're trying to be a disruptor, you're trying to be a leader. How are you gonna do that by yourself? Because
mhm.
now at this point, you need more people, right? Like, you need somebody over there to back you up, and that's what collaboration does for you because now, you were able, like, to your point, to be able to share your expertise, your piece of the pie. You brought in other people's pieces of the pie and now you understand more about what they bring to the table as well. So now it becomes this information exchange that only makes all of y'all better in your respective fields. And I think that is like chef's kiss critical.
Yeah.
So I have another question, and it's gonna be our last dish question, but this is more so. I don't really go too far into politics on this show, as you know, that's not really my bag. But there has been some discourse, over the last like 6 months or so, really bringing up autism specifically in the political and social kind of realm, and without going too far into all of the shenanigans that we have heard, I would love to know how you've worked or how you plan to work with your community partners and learners, families, et cetera, all of those folks in that ecosystem of care we were talking about to change the culture around, autism and how to advance slash evolve the field of ABA.
Yeah. I think I think the biggest thing I probably would do is grace, then extend grace. And let me just say real quick, I hope this doesn't bother anyone, but this helps my brain slow down when I'm talking. I have to have something in my hand, and I have my notes on the side. So if I'm looking off, that's just my notes because my brain will start moving too fast and my words are jumbled. But I think more so just kind of giving grace because there is a lot of misinformation out of there. And there's also a lot of individuals that have been harmed by ABA. And so I don't want to discredit anybody. So I give grace, but then I also take that and shift my trainings. And I take that and shift my how I support and how I show up. And so I think the biggest part is like going to where working with the young learners, because I can only speak more so with children, not even just autistic children, just children, period. Because that's who I work with. But I'm sure this will work in it will work for other corporations as well. I start out with early child care leaders and educators and the teachers and the admin and support staff. And I have been granted the opportunity to do professional developments. And so when I do my professional developments, I try to make sure that I am giving the information that is relatable. I don't want to come off as like I'm teaching you and you did this wrong and you need to change this. I come at them like, hey, I get it. I worked in childcare for 5 years. I'm a mom. I used to practice the old ABA. So I get some of the harmful things that we've done, but let's think about it this way and try to shift it. And I always try to show like real life examples of how, not how autism shows up, but how we all can
Right.
can benefit from having accommodations, how we all can benefit from having certain supports. Just like me using this, I realize I need something to keep my mind, keep me busy, so that way I can focus. Because if not, I'm going to be like all over the place, you know? And so showing things like that and just showing how real life examples is like, okay, that makes sense. But also, I think trying to get people to just see autistic children as humans, which is
Yeah.
so odd to me. You know, just try to as regular human beings, they have needs, they have preferences, they have wants. And because maybe they can't verbalize that, or maybe because they have such big explosive emotions, that just means they're not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time and they
Right.
need you to help them through that time, right? You know, so I try to give good examples of like, a lot of times like, hey, you would be upset if you was watching your favorite game, the football game, and it was about to be a touchdown and someone turned it off and said, all right, it's time to go.
Right.
You would probably blow up. And not even autistic children. We do that to kids all the time. And it's
Right.
like we forget that kids have a voice. We forget that kids also deserve respect. We forget that kids can tell us no. They
Mhm.
can tell you no. The outcome may be different. Thank you, friend. You can tell me no, but we still got to put these shoes on. You know, we just got to keep that mindset of we don't want to go down a slippery slope of telling children. You don't tell adults no.
Mhm.
That's kind of, especially children that don't understand. Like, okay, well, you told me not to tell this adult no, and he had candy in the car.
Right.
No, how do I teach that? Not that adult, but this adult. Oh, and then also you get into this situation of how do you teach safe adults versus unsafe adults? Because we all know that some safe adults aren't safe adults.
Right.
So I try to bring back real life examples and try to relate it back. And I give grace because I don't want anyone to feel like I'm attacking them because then they're going to shut down. So it's like I come to a place of I get it. I understand where you're coming from. What's another way that we can think about this? What's another way that we can address this? And then bring another perspective to them that I think like the child, because sometimes I feel like a big kid, but I try to think like the child and say, have you considered this? Especially for children that can't speak for themselves. Have you considered this? And then it allows the adult, the grown up, the person that to kind of see autism differently and see like, oh, we all need some type of support. We all need some type of accommodations. We may all stem in some type of way, and
Mhm.
we need, it's not so much, we don't want to look at them as like something to be fixed. They just need a little bit more support. And we're not
Yeah.
trying to fit them in a neurotypical world. We're just trying to say, hey, this is how they experience the world. And how do
Right.
we support that?
Yeah. No,
I
I
hope I
think that
answered the question.
no, that did answer the question, and I think that is, super like, the examples that you shared all the entire time I'm thinking, I'm like, "Lead with empathy, lead with empathy." If we would all extend each other some grace and
Yeah.
including children, right? Because they're people too. And then leading with empathy. Again, children are people too, right?
Mhm.
And so, like you said, like we have big emotions, they gonna have big emotions, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if we take a moment, as you were mentioning, to just like stop and think about that and lead with empathy, I think that we would have very different approaches to
Yeah.
a lot of the things that we do.
And don't think you
Awesome.
have to be perfect.
Yes.
Use that as an example. If you get mad and you have a big emotion, model that for the kid. Like, oh, I'm so upset. I need to take a break.
Right.
So that way now they see like, oh, you telling me to take a break and you tell me not to cuss and get loud. And I see you doing it. So what? So
Right.
model the behavior that you want them to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm very happy that we had a chance to really get into what ABA is because, again, I just think there's so many parallels across different industries and just being able to use a lot of these principles and tenets. So, organizational leaders out there, if y'all are, thinking about how you want to encourage some behavior change, you can now think about truly employing some BCBAs because that is what they do, right? And it doesn't matter what kind of organization you have. All right, so we have reached carte blanche. So it is my house, my rules, anything goes. So I'm going to have a question for you, and that is, what has been a life changing moment for you in this journey and owning your own consulting practice?
Think just stepping out on faith. And I think stepping out even when there is imposter syndrome. So just starting the practice itself was like, oh, am I ready? I don't know. Like I do a lot of planning and I plan for this like years in advance and months in advance and like to the T, and then it gets to the point where I'm like, I didn't think about this, but what
Yeah.
if this happens, and just actually just taking that step out and doing it. And it's been working. And then also another just stepping out on seizing an opportunity with one of the child care providers that I was working with to be one of their camp partners, but they offer mental health services to their children. They lost a therapist, and I was like, let me just see if I can get on in there. I didn't know anything about it. I just wanted to ask. And that landed me that opportunity to do professional developments. That also landed me the opportunity. Now I'm creating professional developments. Now I can use that to become a trainer for Georgia professional development system. So now all child care systems in the state of Georgia can come to me and I can deliver that training. Had I not stepped out on that, had I not um, believed in myself enough to do that, who knows where I'd be? I'd probably still be working for a company, complaining and being upset, because it always seems so much harder to do it until you actually do it. And so I kind of use that to help with my imposter syndrome. Like, remember you did that thing and it wasn't that bad? Go ahead and
Yep.
try it again.
You do it scared, y'all. Do it
Yes,
scared. Step
that's
out on faith.
bravery.
It
That's
is.
bravery.
No, I love that, and I mean, we have spoken a lot in my own, as you've been helping me with my own ventures of like stepping out and like doing things on my own and starting my own practice. And so, just being able, one, I thank you. Just being able to ask questions at any time about that has
Anytime.
been extremely helpful. Like you said, like knowing that you did that big thing definitely helps you. Like I can do hard things. I can do
Hmm.
difficult things. And it wasn't that bad. Like, did you die? No.
Right.
Like I didn't die. So, even if I fell flat on my face, I didn't die though, and I learned a lot, and I know I'll be able to apply that. And
Yeah.
so
You learn what not to do next time. Well, don't do
every
that.
single time. And that
That can
that's
work.
extremely valuable, right?
Yeah.
So do it scared, y'all. Y'all heard her. She said, do
Do
it
it
scared.
scared. Can't be
And
brave if
step
you
out
ain't
on
scared.
faith. Yes, step out on faith, regardless of what your faith is. Step out on faith, right? So no, this has been amazing. And I thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you
So
for having
y'all make
me.
sure, comment on the video, ask Lorneshia to, ask her all your questions, connect with her. We'll make sure to include that, of course, within the description box. So y'all have that. And, I want y'all to make sure that y'all are dropping by the newly revamped KMOB 1003 store for goodies. Holidays are coming up. We want, it's a precarious time. So we definitely want to be mindful of our spending. And going to the KMOB 1003 store is a perfect way to do just that. So I will see all of y'all next time. See you Tuesday for more empowering conversations that lead to empowered experiences. Bye, y'all.
Bye.